What up, everybody? It's Chris Roscoe, and today I'm going to be talking about how to develop and maintain a strong sense of self, because I put a poll on my Instagram account, and all of you guys voted on what topic you wanted me to talk about most, and this is the one that won. And this is a really fun way to pick my topics, so I'm probably going to be doing it more often. All right, so let's go into what even is a strong sense of self. What the fuck does that even mean in the first place before we talk about how to develop it and sustain it over a long period of time? So in my personal opinion, a strong sense of self is when you know who you are, what's important to you, what you want, what you don't want, have strong boundaries to keep away what you don't want, and have a strong ability to go after what you do want. It means knowing your values and living in alignment with them. It means knowing your standards and living up to them. It means having integrity and a clear conscience, so that no matter where you go, you know who you are, you know what you want, you know what you won't tolerate, and you are whole and complete because you are in alignment with the strongest and deepest part of yourself, your truest self. So now that we've outlined that, it becomes pretty fucking clear why a lot of people don't have this, because it's really hard. It's taken me a very long time to develop a strong sense of self. And so what I want to encourage you to develop, the attitude I want to encourage you to develop when it comes to something like this, which is a lifelong practice, is looking at it as a lifelong practice where you will be developing this capacity and this sense of self over time, probably for the rest of your life. It's not a place you arrive at. It's a place you constantly get closer to. So I have a much more strong and fully developed sense of self than I did a year ago. And I have a stronger sense of self than I did 6 months ago. I have a stronger sense of self than I did 10 years ago. But it still ain't shit compared to the sense of self that I'll have in the next 6 months, or in the next year, or in the next 10 years. So there will always be room to grow. There will always be things to improve. This is not something that you just arrive at and you're done. Even though a lot of people will talk about it from that perspective, that's just not how it is. Not if you're an integrative person. If you're an integrative person, it's something that you're constantly developing. And so the reason that I say that is because I want you to go easy on yourself. And I want you to celebrate your small wins. If you identify a value that you didn't know about before, that's a win. If you can identify what's keeping you from living in alignment with that value, that's a win. If you learn anything about yourself, that's a win. If you develop a boundary, that's a win. If you learn that you need to be developing a boundary, that's a win. Every single teeny tiny momentary little win, if you acknowledge it and you celebrate it, it will have you look at yourself as somebody who has a sense of self that is strengthening over time. Whereas if you don't acknowledge these little momentary wins, what can easily happen is you can look at yourself as somebody like Sisyphus. You can see yourself as essentially climbing up the same mountain over and over and over again and never really getting anywhere. And so it's important to know that to a certain degree, you already have a sense of self, right? Even if all you want is to develop it, that is the beginning. And so some part of you is already whole in there. It may be covered up with a ton of shit, but there is some part of you that's already whole in there. And there are natural and genuine authentic desires in there. There are values in there. There are these things already in here. You just know yours and have integrated yours to the degree that you have. So you have a starting point, even if your starting point is, wow, I have no fucking clue about any of this stuff, but I want to learn. That's still a starting point. That's still some part of you acknowledging that this shit exists and is willing to take a step in the right direction, or in the direction towards your wholeness, towards your authenticity, and towards your strongest sense of self. So that's really, really important to get out of the way first. So now I want to break down a little bit more what constitutes a strong sense of self. So knowing who you are, knowing what's important to you, what you want, what you don't want, and living up to your own standards in alignment with your values. Those are the things that I kind of fleshed out as the really most important key phases to this. But I think the most essential ones are values and standards, because those are the things that will more or less give you a clear conscience, which is a strong sense of self. If you have a clear conscience, you will have a strong sense of self. And if you have a strong sense of self, you'll have a clear conscience, if you're living in alignment with it. And so values and standards, these are foundational elements of what it takes to have a strong sense of self. Because if you are living in alignment with your values, but not up to your standards, that will eat away at you. You need to both live in alignment with your values and up to your standards, right? Because if you value authenticity, but you're only authentic 30% of the time, it's not really going to do it. If you value authenticity, but you only are authentic 60% of the time, still not going to do it. Because your mind is going to be like, hey, bro, this thing's important to us, and you're not doing it. We have standards, we have values, we have ethics and morals. We have things that are genuinely important to us as an individual, and you're not doing it. And that will not allow you to have a clear conscience. And so this is kind of hardcore, honestly, because this is where you get into the version of reality where you understand that to a certain degree, the only thing that matters is whether or not you've done the thing. Like, your conscience will just only be clear if you're in alignment with your values and up to your standards. It's cruel in a sense if that seems really hard, but it's beautiful once you actually get there. And so again, it's an incremental process. Your conscience will clear up over time as you get more in alignment with your values and up to your standards. Because you could be looking at your values or your standards and you could see something way beyond where you're currently at right now. And that can be intimidating and daunting. And it can make you feel small and powerless, make you want to give up. But if you just remember that it's a small incremental steps, and each incremental step will make your life better and better and better and better and better. So just the process alone is worth doing. And next thing you know, you get to the place where you are living in alignment with your values and your standards and you genuinely feel good about yourself. Again, you always have to keep developing it because your standards will grow over time as your capability grows as well. So it's important to know that. But your standards must be lived up to as well as your values. Standards and values. So now, how do you identify your values? Well, again, pay attention to your conscience. Because your conscience will tell you what you're doing or not doing. Your conscience will always be the best indicator of where you're out of alignment with yourself. Now, there may be some work to do here, right? Because your conscience could be telling you something based in trauma and based in judgment and protection. And so either way, you have to integrate that. And in the process of integration, you'll find out that, oh, wow, this is a value that I'm not living in alignment with. I'm not being authentic enough. I value creativity. So it's like, I'm not being creative enough. I also value adventure. And so it's like, I'm not being adventurous enough. I value expression. So it's like, I'm not being expressive enough. And so your mind will tell you what's important to you. And you just have to pay attention to what part of you is telling you that things could be better. And just listen, why? Why could things be better? What could be better about them? Do I need to be doing something? Or am I just holding on to some negative belief because it's protecting me from something? When you take a look at your conscience and any part of your conscience that isn't healthy and happy, it will tell you one of those two things. Either you're holding on to a belief about yourself that isn't working and it needs to change, or you're not doing something that you need to do in order to respect and like yourself to the degree that you could. And so your shadow is your one-stop shop to figure out where you're out of alignment, because it will fucking tell you. That's its job. All of your unconscious parts that have needs and values and desires and standards and all those sorts of things, the degree to which those standards and needs and values are not being met is the degree to which that part of you will speak up to make sure that it happens. Now, the more you repress it and the more you ignore it, the louder and the more aggressive and the more intense that it has to get. So I generally recommend starting with the loudest one first, since that's the one that wants to be seen the most, and then just kind of go down the line. Like I like to say, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And so if it's not causing problems, don't worry about it. If it's broken, it will eventually start causing problems and you deal with it then. So just work on what's causing the most problems now. What's keeping your conscience unclean the most? What's bothering you the most about what you're doing? And then understand why. Is it a protective mechanism to keep you out of trauma and uncomfortable feelings? Or is you not doing something? It is a mix of the two. Like, you got to understand this for yourself, because it's your conscience and it's going to tell you what you need to do. And ultimately, if you listen to your conscience and you listen to your shadow and you figure out like, oh wow, like I need to be more expressive, because that's important to me and I'm not doing that, or I need more adventure, or I need more connection, or I need more whatever is important to you, and by your own standards that you're not doing, your mind will tell you that. And the more you get into alignment with it, the more strong you'll feel in yourself, because your boundaries will be set, because your conscience will tell you when you're not setting boundaries. Your values will be lived into because your conscience will tell you when you're not. And your standards are being lived up to and because your conscience will tell you when they're not. And so as you continue to address all these things and integrate whatever part of you is out of alignment, you just naturally become more whole and you just naturally become more you. And that's the strongest version of you that you can possibly be. Whatever you are at your most integrated, whatever all these fragmented parts of your personality integrate into, whatever the fuck that is. I don't know. You call it your soul. You could call it Atman. You could call it a lot of different things. A lot of people put a lot of different names on it throughout the course of human history. I don't know what it's called. I personally don't give a fuck. I just know that as I integrate all the fragmented parts of myself, I become more of a thing that I don't have to try to enjoy. I don't have to think about it anymore. My life just becomes effortlessly enjoyable. It becomes effortlessly fun. My creativity doesn't really take any thought or anything like that. Next thing I know, I'm making more money. My relationships work better and just, it's magic. I don't have to fucking try. So whatever it is in here that wants to be integrated and that wants to integrate these things in service of, whatever that is, gives me what feels like a strong sense of self that I can take with me wherever I want to go. And as I integrate, it continues to get stronger. So as far as how to develop a strong sense of self, this is what I've done, and it's worked for me incredibly well. And then how to maintain that over time, you just pay attention to your conscience. As soon as your conscience starts bothering you, something's wrong. Either you're doing something wrong or you're viewing something wrong. You're either doing or viewing, possibly both. But if your conscience is yelling at you or bullying you or dragging you down or doing something other than being completely clear, that is your gateway to a stronger sense of self. So if you want help integrating these things, feel free to ask me deeper questions about where you might be stuck individually, and I can make more videos about things that are a little bit more detailed and specific, or you can just hire me to help you do this. I've been doing this for a really long time. I have mastered my own internal world. I've been teaching other people to master their internal world for a very long time, and I'd be happy to do it for you. So reach out to me. Let me know if you want support. I do have a course I'm going to be releasing in the next couple weeks that'll teach you how to do all this integration stuff. So let me know if you have any questions. I hope this was helpful. I love you, and I'll see you next time.